Let's briefly talk about Magic Cavs. Unfortunately, didn't quite live up to the billing of the other two games of the night. Cleveland wins this one pretty easily. What did you take away here?
Donovan Mitchell is just so clearly the best player in this series, and then Darius Garland is just so clearly the second best perimeter creator. Like, there's just too large of a gap for Orlando to make up offensively. They just don't have any avenues to easy offense. Like, they don't have any at-rim athletic finishers that are finishing plays off easily. They don't have any over-the-top shot makers that can just get hot and carry them through stretches, man. And the ceiling for Cleveland is really high. Like, that stretch where Darius Garland takes over, it's like, wow, man. When he hits like 2 or 3 threes in the third quarter or whatever it was, you go, man, he can do this for stretches of games where he carries the offense. We've already seen what Donovan Mitchell can do and how easy it is for him to just get to the rack or knock down a pull-up jumper. He makes it look so effortless. And Evan Mobley, I thought, had another really good game where he's attacking mismatches and doing his thing. And if those guys are playing at that level offensively, Cleveland's a really tough draw in scary matchup. And the other guy I want to give mad props to is Isaac Okoro. I have been really impressed with him in these playoffs thus far, and his shooting improvement is real. He was a 29% shooter his rookie year. This season, 39%. He was a 30% catch and shooter his rookie year, 40% off the catch this year. That's a real game changer. When you have two physically imposing bigs like Allen and Mobley that just take a ton of attention on the interior, that's going to create advantages on the perimeter for your shooters. Garland and Mitchell, the way they collapse and make defenses rotate, just generates open looks. When you have a guy that can defend at this level and that can shoot at this level, he is just the perfect role player to have alongside these guys. Okoro is a legit threat. You cannot leave him open from behind the arc. And so for Orlando, these next two games of the series, you got to win both of them. And you got to figure out what lineup you're going to go with offensively to generate any kind of looks. It seems like the answer is going to be Joe Ingles minutes, Carson. If that is your answer in the playoffs,
no, it's over. Orlando has no path to winning this series.
If that is your answer, you're in deep trouble, man. That was the best stretch of this offense. There's a little bit of light in the third quarter and in the fourth where they make this thing close, but it's really Cleveland just letting their foot off the gas. There's a 10-0 run in the second quarter where I was like, uh-oh, man, Orlando's got to ride this and figure it out. And it's sad, man, because there's just no – I talked about this after the first game. There's just no configuration that gives Orlando a good baseline to defend Cleveland defensively and also have good counters offensively. Ingles is so slow-footed, is so old. He's going to make good decisions. He's going to find the open guy. He's going to get the offense going, but he's going to give up points on the other end. And so it's just tough, man. I think the best lineup is Ingles, Franz, Paolo, Mo, and either Wendell Carter Jr. or like John Isaac, and you're getting abused.
I don't agree. I think that's a weird configuration. I don't want to play Mo out there with another real big. If it's Isaac, then that's fine. But also, Joe Ingles is not the answer, Logan. He made some nice passes. He can make capable decisions.
But it's
he's
like, dude,
not changing the series.
I mean, that's my point. There's no – if your answer is Joe Ingles minutes, it's wraps, man. Cole Anthony's not doing jack out there. Markelle Fultz isn't doing jack. Gary Harris had a decent game. Suggs, I thought, was going to be out the rest of the series. He comes back after his knee injury. That was scary. But, yeah, man, that's the point. The Magic just don't have enough two-way guys. They're too limited with any configuration that you go with. Cole Anthony, Ingles are getting eaten on defensively. Fultz doesn't have enough of a jumper. Yeah, it's just over. And Paolo, I love. Paolo's just settling too much, man. There's just a massive talent gap here that I drastically underestimated coming into this series, man. I thought Orlando was going to be able to make this thing grimy. They have, but they just can't score the basketball. That's pretty crucial in these playoff environments, Carson. And that's going to be the thing that kills them. But you know what? It's good. This is a young team that has overachieved, that is very, very young, that is coming into their own. And guess what? In the makeup, in the building of these rosters that are going to go deep into the playoffs and contend, you got to have these really bad losses. Cleveland did it last year. Guess what? They realized we don't have enough shooting. We don't have enough two-way guys. And so they went out and they found them. And this is the wake-up call that Orlando is going to have to face and go, you know what? We need more, two-way guards. We need more over-the-top shot making. We need different looks. We're just too limited. And so I think Orlando probably gets swept. I think Cleveland probably takes these next two games, ends this thing quick. And Orlando's going to enter their offseason early and have to figure some things out. But I think it's been really encouraging that we've seen the young guys for Cleveland play so well, man. Okoro, Mobley in his offensive game. Garland played better in this one. Cleveland on their best day is a very scary team. It sucks because their floor is so low, but Cleveland on their best day is a really good basketball team, man. But they're just going up against inferior competition, man. Orlando seems like a really inferior playoff team.
They're just not a playoff caliber offense. You're saying they don't have enough two-way players. They don't have enough one-way players, and that one way is offense. Cole Anthony, who was a light 0 for 11 in this series, cannot be your offensive injection. Joe Ingles, who is barely hanging on in this league. I love Jingles, prime Jingles. Oh yeah, give me a full serving of that. Come on. I thought he should have been 6th man of the year over Clarkson in 2021, but cannot be your offensive injection in a playoff series, dude. It's just awful. It's some of the worst playoff offense that we've seen in recent years. They are clearly the worst playoff offense since at least the 2021 Knicks, which, lest we forget, was Julius Randle, who has a number one option, just could not hold up with no creators alongside him, not good spot up shooting alongside him. That team was an obvious first round bounce. A lot of people picked them because they're the Knicks, but I was like, they're going to get washed by the Hawks. You don't win playoff series when you're this bad offensively. You just don't. And if you're also super young and your best players are young, good luck. And if you're also playing a team that is great defensively and specifically is well built to stop your already super flawed offense with versatile big wings who can guard your stars, with great help defenders, versatile bigs who can take away the rim, and they're going to test your spot up shooting, and your spot up shooting sucks. Yeah, it's going to get ugly. And it's been really, really ugly. So at this point, they're not going to win the series. I think that was pretty clear before things started. It is super, super clear now. You're basically just evaluating how do Paolo and Franz look in these environments. And Paolo has had some things exposed. I don't know if I would even say exposed. They were clear in his game, and it's not surprising that they become an issue in these playoff environments, but he's obviously still maturing. He's a second-year player. This is a really tough task for him, but his handle has to be better. 15 turnovers in 2 games. Several of those are due to just poor ball handling. Also, some struggles dealing with double teams. Also, he has this bad tendency of forecasting his passes, and so he just gets cleanly picked off at times. And then you mentioned the settling. This is tough because he's facing a lot of good man defenders who physically are stout enough to match up with him, and he can't bully those guys, and he's dealing with a lot of crowded paints. But he always has this tendency to take his tough mid-range pull-ups, and he made a couple of them in this game. But ultimately, it's not efficient offense. He's 40% from that range. And also, I think he needs to become more confident and comfortable as a spot-up shooter because he passes up a couple of good spot-up looks in this game. So he's got to get better as a jump shooter. He's got to rely on it less. He's got to assert himself more physically, consistently in these environments. But Cleveland has done a really, really good job on him. I mean, they have a bunch of versatile options who can guard him. And ultimately, I really want to see this guy with a true point guard, with a guard who can create at a high level at all, because I think there's so much untapped potential with him as a screener, what he could do as a short roller, what he can do just as an athlete coming downhill. And Orlando just doesn't have the guards to tap into any of that.
I love that. I think that's a dynamic that they don't have. And I think they should just involve Paolo in more screening actions, period. They don't run a ton of that. The one other thing I wonder if Orlando can do, and I don't think this changes the complexion of the series. I don't know if Orlando can muster a game against Cleveland, but I thought Orlando should have tried to get switches from Garland and Mitchell on Franz and Paolo more.
But they're not switching those actions.
Sometimes you'd get the switch, but Paolo would back those guys down, and then he'd settle for a turnaround jumper. And in those scenarios, I just want Paolo to weaponize his physicality more. Again, if that ultimately leads to you drawing the big man over and then kicking back out, or they don't ever bring anybody over and you can just attack a guard, it's just easier offense. I'd like to see Paolo. He doesn't utilize it. And, that's something that we saw young Jason Tatum struggle with too. He doesn't really use his body as much as I'd like. And this is a hard series. It is, because when he does drive the lane, you're going into Mobley and Allen. And it's like, okay, well, let me just give them the ball back because I'm going to get stuffed or they're going to get a rebound. So this probably isn't the best series to make the take. But I think older Paolo, using his body more, you're right. There's so many shots. And Paolo's a good shooter. He knocked down a couple of those catch-and-shoot looks.
He has clear shooting potential. He's not an efficient shooter at this stage in his career.
I think a lot of that is due to his shot diet. I think he's just taking hard shots. Like, I'm saying, Paolo fundamentally is a good shooter. And so when you can set him up for good, high-quality looks, like off the catch, he was settling a lot where I'm like, dude, don't even take that dribble. Don't even jab step, because one of the possessions, Niang is just dropping off of him. Paolo gives him a jab and a pump fake. Niang doesn't move. He just stands there and looks at him and goes, okay, shoot it.
It's the classic tough bucket tendency, bro. It's the mellow. It's I'm open for a catch and shoot three, but what if I jabbed and then I isolated on you for no reason? Paolo definitely has a little bit of that in him.
And I'd like to see Paolo take those easy catch and shoot looks, especially if they're just going to give it to him. If they're not going to close out hard, go up with that's a good look for you. Paolo's a good shooter. Ultimately, these gripes are going to fall on deaf ears and ultimately aren't going to make a difference in this series. You're right. This series is way more about taking a look and taking inventory and taking stock of your young roster and really noticing where these guys can improve. And this is the test of young teams, man. It's hard. So I think Cleveland probably ends up sweeping this series, finishing this thing off in Orlando, but there are areas where I'd like to see Orlando switch stuff up. And I thought Jamal Mosley tried stuff, man. He closes with that lineup or gives them more minutes in the fourth where it's Ingles, Wagner, Banchero, and then a different five guys. So Mosley tried to switch it up. I don't really think there's anything that Orlando can do to really throw Cleveland off their series. And once again, their injection of wing talent, it may not be star-studded names, but Niang, Strus, LeVert, just having these guys on the court allows them to stagger the minutes between Allen and Mobley. And Cleveland's done a phenomenal job of that all series long, where they're just more skilled on the wings this year and they can throw different looks at it, where those guys don't have to run the entire time. So I think Cleveland's improved from their postseason last year, and I think Orlando going through the growing pains of a young playoff team.
Orlando's not ready, and ultimately they're just lacking offensively in every way. Like, their stars don't create easy shots consistently, and they take tough shots themselves. But also, like, one of Paolo's strengths is his passing, and the spot-up shooters just cannot hit anything, bro. They're 17 of 72 from deep in this series, and Paolo's had some rough stretches of decision making and just passing accuracy. But man, nobody is converting when he does create a decent shot.
And then, as a primary creator in these situations, when your guys aren't hitting, you're overcompensating on the other side. So you're going, well, I got to go and create my own shot because nobody's hitting. And it's just it's a conundrum.
It has been rough watching Franz in this series. I expect more out of him. I've been a big Franz guy. I think he does so many things at a high level as a playmaker. Before this year, his value as a three-point shooter, multi-positional defender, great transition player. Franz has been an awesome number two, in my opinion. But this year, he has been rough from beyond the arc. And in this series, he's just also being guarded super well. Strus and Okoro both did well on him in this game. That's the thing. Cleveland just has so many quality defenders. The two bigs are great, but the collection of wings, so good and so well built to guard Paolo and Franz, who don't explode by you with crazy quickness, who are going to have these more methodical, physical drives, and they just have dudes who physically can hold up. And the bigs did well on switches against Franz, so his shot diet is just super difficult. This is really just a test for Orlando of, okay, what do we need to look like going forward? Obviously, they need to add a dynamic guard offensively. They need to have more consistent spot-up shooting, period. And then this defensive foundation will take them pretty far. Having Franz on the wings, maintaining a great defensive guard like Jalen Suggs, who is clearly a foundational piece. The different looks they have at the five with Wendell Carter Jr. and Jonathan Isaac, those are both really good basketball players. They just need to have way more offensive pop. I like Paolo. I do think some people anointed him a bit prematurely, as tends to happen, especially when you have aura and you have the pedigree of being a number one pick, and people can look at your game and say, that guy kind of looks like LeBron, and your team is doing well, but they're doing well on the back of a great defense, and your offense is really bad, and that's the side of the ball that you're more responsible for as the primary creator. Like, I made a whole video about Paolo a couple weeks back. He clearly has all NBA potential, in my opinion, but he also has some things that he really needs to refine and some areas in which he really needs to mature offensively. And we have unsurprisingly seen that in this series. Cleveland is a lot better. Donovan Mitchell had that awesome first quarter, was pushing in transition, getting easy looks, which is not so easy to come by in this series. And it's just like that combination of quickness and pull-up shooting, man. When he's on, he's just a marvel to watch and is so much better than anybody else in this series. Like, that was the thing in the first quarter and last game. It's just like, cool. You have the guy who was the best player on the floor by so far. So just give me Cleveland based on that pretty much alone. But Jarrett Allen has been phenomenal. Mr. Lights Were Too Bright last year has been great in both games. 20 boards in this one with 5 stocks. And very importantly, has been aggressive as a finisher, has been confident and assertive in those spots, which is just really, really nice to see from him. Mobley also knocked down a 3 in this game as well. If teams are leaving him wide open, he's taking them and he's making them at a decent clip. So everything is just better for Cleveland this year than it was last year. Obviously, they had a tougher draw, but this is a similarly ugly series in which their bigs are playing a lot better. Mitchell is playing a lot better, and that's encouraging. Boston is obviously a super rough draw, but last year, I think, left such a sour taste in their mouths. And also, as you mentioned, like, they've done such a great job with the wings. Okoro is so much better. Yang and Strus, both good pickups. They don't even have Dean Wade out there, who's been legit good this year. They've built a much better basketball team, and I think it's been good to see that play out against an Orlando team that ultimately they would beat kind of no matter what.